Warning, this toy may cause nausea with some users. In a few moments, I'll tell you why. Greetings and salutations. Today I'd like to talk about Skyhammer, the Autobot from Dark of the Moon who wasn't actually in Dark of the Moon. But first, let me quickly speak about Mechtech, the line from Dark of the Moon that I absolutely love. I think this line is great for collecting today because you can still get these fully boxed, brand new Autobots and Decepticons with all these cool big ass guns for really cheap. I'm talking sometimes 30, 40, 50 bucks, which for brand new unopened bots from 14 years ago, that's pretty impressive. That Voyager Sentinel Prime we just looked at is only serviceable as a vehicle. His robot mode is terrible. Go for the leader class, it's fantastic. However, Ironhide in his Voyager class in Mechtech came in a couple different variations, and his robot and truck mode are amazing. I highly suggest picking them up. But we're here today to talk about Skyhammer. Skyhammer was introduced in the Transformers toy line in 1989 as part of the Mega Pretenders subline. His gimmick involved a small inner robot that could transform into a vehicle and fit inside a larger, non-transforming outer shell. His vehicle mode, however, was a futuristic helicopter, which could also convert into a battle station. Even though he had this really cool design, Skyhammer didn't actually appear in any major fiction, and it made him one of the more obscure G1 characters. He did have a few small post-G1 appearances, and of course he reappeared in Transformers Dark of the Moon as a completely reimagined character. The version of Skyhammer transforms into an attack helicopter which resembles the Eurocopter Tiger, and he has a more modern, armored Autobot robot mode. He's portrayed as an aerial combat specialist, but due to his absence from the film, his personality and role were mostly developed through any bios and supplementary material you can see on this box. While I don't love the robot mode, there is a lot I do like about it, but I do think it is the weakest of the two modes for Skyhammer. I do like how parts of the cockpit and fuselage sort of form his upper chest and shoulders, and they make him look very armored and powerful. His head sculpt, however, leaves a lot to be desired. It looks kind of like your first try on your $300 3D printer, and the mold is just almost seems like it's melting. The face is just kind of hard to look at up close. His legs are nicely detailed and look strong, however, I don't love the muted blue and gray color scheme. And his hip joints, at least on my figure, are very loose and make it difficult to pose him properly without him dropping into a split.
My balls!
He looks pretty cool from the side, but turning him around to the back is the biggest problem for me. I'm not even kidding about this. I can hardly look at the back of this thing. And maybe you're not trypophobic and you don't understand this at all, but for those of you that do, you get it, and we're just gonna move on. It's nasty. So yeah, the robot mode is okay, but I do have a lot of trouble posing him, and I just think the misses outweigh the hits. There is one other thing to mention about the robot mode, and it's a little Mechtech gimmicky, but it is kind of cool. You can untab the rotor blades from his back and they will actually spin around on his chest. And you can imagine had he been in the movie, this might have been his source of attack for him. But of course, he wasn't in the movie, so we'll never know. Speaking of gimmicks, like most Mechtech weapons, his blaster will transform with a spring-loaded lever. You can, of course, stick it on the side of his arm, and as obnoxious oversized Mechtech weapons go, it's not that bad. You can twist the lever to lock the extended version of the weapon into place, but then it becomes just a little too large and unwieldy. And of course, the alt mode is where Skyhammer really shines. This helicopter is absolutely gorgeous. And it is really just a toy, but for you true helicopter nerds out there, the Google will tell you that this is a mix between the Europet Tiger and the Mi-24. There's very little kibble on this thing, and especially underneath where you normally expect there to be, it's pretty solid and just looks really good. The tinted transparent canopy gives it a realistic cockpit feel with visible molded details underneath that makes you feel like there's definitely somebody in there piloting this thing. And facing you straight on is where this helicopter really shines. It looks so menacing and aggressive. And this of course is Mechtech, so the weapon will be useful even in vehicle mode. If you unlock it, you can actually fold it back up again, and it will fit underneath the cockpit on the front. You just stick it in one of the little Mechtech ports there. Of course, you have to move the smaller landing gear out of the way, but once you do that, you can stick it into that port and it serves as an alternative landing gear, but it doesn't look very good. In fact, I'm not sure why you would do this in the first place, but it is an intended use because there is another landing gear wheel underneath on the weapon. So they want you to do this, I just don't know why. But, you know, from the front it looks pretty cool. And I think a cooler use for it is to actually open it back up, and then you have this giant murder blade hanging off the front of the helicopter. Take that, stupid worst Studio Series figure ever made. But as we mentioned before, of course, this thing has a lot of holes. Sorry, trypophobia folks, but you can put the weapon on the side as well. And again, this might be the best use for it. Like with all Mechtech weapons, they tend to be kind of goofy, but hanging off the side like this, you can have some fun with that, especially if you're a younger kid and you actually want to use this toy as a toy. I think it provides enough entertainment for that purpose. And of course, if you didn't notice the first time, the rotor blades on this helicopter do spin freely, and that's a bonus as well. So all in all, even though Skyhammer's robot mode might be a 6, I'd have to say the alt mode is a solid 9.5. And now it's time for our rock and roll size comparisons. Spinny things.
Die, Autobot! Die! I'm a shitty Studio Series! My balls!